thank you. We are here in another episode of Impact, and we have with us Amba Small, who will be sharing her experience of life and talking about impact. You know, we all have someone who have dedicated their lives to helping others and who have influenced us from young age to become who we are, whether it's our teachers or family or friends. So we're going to hear from Amber as we talk about the impact others have had on her, and then how she in turn is going to or has been impacting young minds. Thank you, Amber, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. People might be wondering, who is Amba Small? Tell us, who is Amba Small?
I am still trying to find out who Amba Small is, but so far I am a mother, first and foremost. I'm a mother of 3 boys and 1 princess daughter. I am an educator. I'm a publisher. I'm an editor. I am a cake artist. And I'm a friend. I'm a great friend.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
It seems like you're wearing a lot of hats there, Amber. You that means you will be able to tell us how you have ended up doing so many things and what have impacted you in doing all these things. But let's start from Amber the child. Tell us about you as a child. Where you went to school as a child and how was those years?
When I speak of my childhood, I often feel like I don't know where to start, because people who know me and have heard the stories, they will tell you that my life is like a movie just because of, my parents and who they were. But I think my childhood starts from who my parents were. And I come from parents who were out of middle class homes, but basically rejected that lifestyle and, went out on their own as teenagers to become Rastafarians. And most importantly, Garveyites or, Black Power movement people. And so they lived on their own and rejected certain ways of living. And certain systems, as they would call it. And so they were very educated and intelligent and great thinkers and wanted to live their life a certain way. And so because of who they were, my childhood was very interesting. So, I was born in Augustown. I was born at home. And my father will say I was the only child of his that he saw being born. And I grew up in that environment, but lived amongst Rastafarians in a settlement called Dreadites. And this was down by the Hope River, where a group of Rastafarian, particularly 12 tribe Rastafarians, went and lived. Now, mind you, my father's father was a judge, a Supreme Court judge. His mother was a lecturer at University of West Indies. But he left home at 16 to, join the Rastafarian movement and live on his own. And my mother, her mother was an educator. Her father was a soldier. And she too, left home and went to live with my father. And so my beginning in life was by the river, living by the river in a board house among other Rastafarians. And so it was interesting, to say the least.
I can see, and now I understand why, if anybody knows Amber, she's always by the river. I can understand why you love the river so much, Amber.
So true.
Now, so you're saying your parents were the founding fathers of Black Lives Matters in some sense, then?
That's a nice way of putting it, but absolutely, they fought the fight and they were a part of the underground movement. My father was arrested for treason in Jamaica, if you have ever heard of that before. So yes, they were.
So that must have had you growing up as a child in the Rastafari movement with your parents rejecting the middle class life and going out, living as they were then. What did that do for you as a child growing up? Did you see yourself different from other children? Did it have an impact on you?
Well, absolutely not. Not at the time, because, I lived among children who were like me. Their parents were Rastafarians. Their parents were also educated and from middle class, but had rejected a certain type of life. Many of my friends' parents were university graduates and so on, but who had joined the movement and had become Garveyites and Rastafarians. Many of us went to Hope Valley Experimental. I don't know how many persons in Jamaica even knew of that school. And from in the 70s, it was a pioneer school, which was started to kind of experiment with the idea of educating children, able-bodied children with disabled children. And so it was the first school in Jamaica that had disabled children in the classroom with able-bodied children. And these children came from Mona Rehab and so on. And so many of the students of Hope Valley, their parents were workers of University of the West Indies and university hospitals. So many of their parents were doctors, lecturers, and that kind of professionals from the university, as well as from the Rastafarian settlement and from the inner city of Augustown. So you can imagine that melting pot.
Yeah.
And I really believe that because of it, I am very comfortable around anyone. I can talk to anybody and I can, navigate myself in whichever environment.
So when you were in primary school, you didn't feel different from anybody because you had so many different groups you were around, you didn't see yourself as being less off or more off?
Well, absolutely not. And funny, when I look back at it, I realize how much we were not discriminated against because our parents were Rastafarians. And I think which was unusual at that time. This is in the late 70s, early 80s. That's unusual, but I think because the community was aware of the Rastafarian group that lived in the community, and they knew these people as intelligent and having all these other attributes, as opposed to the general Jamaica thinking of Rasta as just dirty Rasta. They didn't think of Rastafarians that way because they knew better. They knew them. They were from their community. They went to school with them. They went to university with them. So they knew. So people like Peter Phillips, who was former president of the People's National Party, he was also one of them. We grew up with his children and many others like that. So I didn't feel discriminated against, even though I must say, I do recall when my mother would sometimes give us like banana fritters for lunch. We would go to the nethermost part of the the play field. All my brothers and sisters would meet up at lunchtime and have our banana fritters up there before joining everybody else. Clearly, there was something that made us feel to take ourselves away to have our humble meal. But other than that, no, I did not feel different at all.
So what was that thing that made you that, you were growing up with all these different groups? What was the thing that, was it the food? Was it what was it that made you at that time had to go away?
It's a curious memory, but it's one I've always had. I'm not sure why. I know it's not because we were greedy and didn't want to share, but somehow we felt the need. I should stop saying we, because maybe my brothers and sisters didn't have a problem, but I definitely have a memory of us going to a fireplace and having lunch together, taking our banana fritters from our greasy paper bag. I have that memory, but other than that, I've never felt discriminated against. And the only time I know that we were a bit uncomfortable, or I was when we had to, meet with our extended family. And again, my father's family being very affluent and all that, we would leave from our humble place of Dreadites with no, electricity and no running water. I mean, we used to catch water from the river and that kind of livity, and then go up in the hills of Stony Hills or Cherry Gardens or so on to have Christmas dinner with my father's extended family. And what I do recall, and we did this even up to early adulthood, we tended to stay together. And I think because there were so many of us siblings, it was easy for us to enjoy each other's company. And so as we got old and realized that we did it, we would make jokes with each other to say, go and engage with everybody else. Why are we always eating together, sitting at one table? Go and engage with everybody else. But we had become so happy with our company, our own company. But that eventually changed. But yes, we definitely did notice a difference between our standard of living and theirs. But again, in the community of Dreadites where we lived, we were like, everybody else.
I want to touch on the point of your parents rejecting that affluent lifestyle and moving away. Has that made any impact on you growing up as an adult now about lifestyle and, people of different standings in society?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that I'm so grateful for. I do not look down on people. I embrace everybody. I can relate to almost anybody. And I also don't judge people who are affluent either for, their ways of living and so on. I think it made me be able to focus on who people are and, their attributes apart from material things. And so I'm not fussy, I think that has been the greatest impact on me. And even with my children, sometimes I marvel that my children are not kids who ask for brand name things or anything like that. They're just not like that. And somehow that had transferred throughout the years of how I lived and how I raised them without me even knowing it. It wasn't a purposeful thing, but it was something I noticed that my children don't pressure me for things that are costly. They're not impressed by that. There are things they would like because of what they can do, but never because of an image or anything like that.
Yeah. I know you have always had enjoyed going to family gathering on holidays and so forth. Would you say that that lifestyle where your parents have always gone to that is something that have stayed with you throughout the years and you find yourself doing the same now you're an adult?
Absolutely. Our family is very big on gathering and we just love that. All of our family are cousins. We still hang out even as cousins. So now we may not have everybody there, the parents or grandparents, just as cousins to just go and have dinner. We try to link up at every possible chance we get. And we totally enjoy this. And I thought this was normal until people have expressed to me, boy, your family is so close. Your family is so close. I just thought that was normal. And my father and his father were big on family, but especially my father, he is big on family. And he speaks of his family a lot, and we learn a lot through him and his stories. So yes, that definitely had an impact on how I am and how I've raised the children.
The fact that people saying to you that, you are admiring or talking about how you gather with your family and you didn't see it as anything different. You thought it was normal. Was there anything, you looking back at your primary years or, growing up as a child that you think was normal that you realize wasn't normal?
Oh, yeah. So several things. Let me try to tell you the most important ones. My father is a historian. I want to say not by formal education, but by experience, and he's extremely well read. He is somebody who is consulted in Jamaican historical facts and so on. And I call him a teacher. He doesn't call himself a teacher, but he's constantly teaching. No, when we were children, we were not very appreciative of this. It was quite annoying to always be in a lecture or being taught something. So even if we were going to the country, and this is something else that is unusual, how much we would travel the entire island. He would tell us we're going to the beach. But us going to the beach would mean that we start by driving St. Thomas and we go all the way around the entire island. We usually stop at as many free beaches as we can. But this journey is usually like a 2-day journey because of all the stops he would make. He would never pass somewhere historical or even historical just for our family. So we would always stop at all these milestones and these places, even graveyards, just to look at the names and if there's any connection between their names and our family. And he was very interested in genealogy and ancestry and history. And so every step of the way, we're being given a tour with a guide. And of course, being questioned. I wish I passed this down to my children. I really wish I did that because we go on trips and we love to. I love to take them to the country and go on trips, but I definitely don't lecture them the whole way. I wish I did though. They would know more. So there's that, just how much my father tried to teach us and our many, many trips around the island or in every single parish of Jamaica. There is no parish we have not gone to several times. And what else is unusual? The fact that my father, for every child, every one of us on our birth certificate, my father has a different career. On mine, it says he's an artist. On someone else's, it would say he's a taxi driver. On someone else, it could say he's a writer. I mean, he was just someone who was always doing something else. And the funny thing is, I realized as I got older that I was kind of doing the same thing, you know.
Because
but
that's what I was just thinking about that. As at the introduction, you told me about all those different things. So obviously that impacted you on doing so many different things.
Absolutely. I mean, Craig, there are things my father had done that a lot of people don't know. He created greeting cards where he would draw portraits and so on, different pictures on them, and sell and sold them. He used to, and I remember as children with him asking us to sit on a drum and he would draw our portrait. And so on my birth certificate, he was artist at the time. His worst job or career he's ever had, in our opinion, his family's opinion, is that of taxi driver. Oh my goodness. I mean, so my father, while we lived in Dread Heights, or even after we moved, but we still went to Hope Valley, he was a taxi driver for that route from Papine to Augustown. And so even when we moved to Mountain View on Elton Road, he would take us to school, but then let us off at Augustown so he could pick up a load and take to Papine. So we would have to walk from Augustown up to the school, which seemed very, very far at the time. It's a good little walk. And we always tell the story of him driving past us with his car full of passengers and my brother sticking out his tongue at him because he was so annoyed. But yes, he has done several things, and that is something that I think is unique. And it also showed us, though, that we could do whatever we wanted. we could become what we wanted, and it there's no discrimination in careers. So I've never felt like my children had to be doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, you know. I wanted them to be what their heart, what their passion is.
And
I
at that
wanted them
time,
to pursue that.
at that time, you didn't feel that way, did you?
No, I didn't think of it. I didn't think of it. And I must say that every time we speak of our family, we tend to talk about our father a lot because his personality is so huge, and there's so many hilarious stories to tell and horrible stories. But there's also my mother, who definitely had an impact. Without her, I don't know where we would be. She was the calm.
I was just gonna ask you, you know, your mom or your dad, who had the greatest impact? But I'm sure she had some things too.
Definitely, she was the calm amidst the storm. My mother is quiet, and she is gentle, and she is calm, and she's a solid rock. Okay. So while my father would, be the free spirit going about and pursuing, because he was a hard worker. I mean, at one point he worked at Ready Mix and he worked at the bank. Did you know that his first job was at the bank? Was at Barclays Bank at the time. And it's funny, that was my first job too, at NCB. And he did all of these various things and, spent a lot of time reasoning and so on, and working underground with Walter Rodney movement and, starting the fire, not literal fire, but, lighting a fire in young people's minds of what the government should be, what should be happening, and how we should see ourselves as Black people. And my mother was the one at home with us, making sure everything was okay.
So she had a part to play in you being who you are. So you had a double whammy: the hard worker, the dad who was doing everything, which you have become that, and then you have a mom who was a soft, taking care of the family, and that have impacted you as to how you do family.
And hardworking too. She was the constant. So she's the one who would have been working somewhere for 20, 30 years. You know what I mean? Whereas daddy would have changed jobs like 3-4 times, changed careers, not just jobs in that period. So yes, she definitely had an impact. I was telling someone the other day that, listen, I'm so grateful for my mother, because if it wasn't for her as a driver, I'm more like her in terms of if somebody bad drive me or so, I just shake my head or, mumble something. If I only had my dad, listen, I know I got that from my mom.
So I'm trying to understand if there was, with your dad being who he is, education he gave you in life, how was it then in school? Was there a teacher that could, equal or do any impact you in any way with education, because you had such a dad who was educating you in life more so?
Well, the teachers were absolutely important. They taught what we needed to know to pass exams. My father taught what we needed to know to be alive, to be persons, to have impact, to have personality, character, integrity, and purpose. But our teachers taught us what we needed to know to pass CXC. I mean, if I were to answer CXC questions based on what my father taught me, I probably wouldn't pass, So he was impactful like that, and he was terrible with us and doing homework, just because of, he had no patience for these things that they were trying to teach us. He wanted to teach higher things. And so the lessons were definitely different, what we would get from school, but he was always involved. Every school I went to from primary, every teacher knew my father because he was the one they knew. They didn't know my mother. My father was the one who always came to school. talked to the teachers, went to parent conferences, know the teachers and all of that. My mother again was just quiet, laid back. So even if she came, you wouldn't realize that she was my mother or so on. But
and was the teachers fearful, or how did the teachers relate to your dad?
oh, they loved him. The teachers always loved him. Which is strange, isn't it? He wasn't rough on them or anything. My father, to explain to those who don't know him, he can come off as being rough. He speaks very strongly, but only against injustice and only against things that he feels should be pushed back on. But apart from that, people always loved my father, even though us as children thought he was so hard on us. And I remember years ago, my sister, who was practicing law in British Virgin Island, she was amazed because Daddy had gone over there to visit her. And she called us and said, listen, my living room is full every night. Every night there are scores of lawyers, whoever, gathered in our living room, just in awe and listening to Daddy. And we were just laughing about it because we remember how we hated to listen to the lectures, and yet our friends always enjoyed thoroughly listening to him. So, and yet our mother, they would just know as a sweet lady. That's it.
Now, in terms of, you're an educator yourself, and you know the importance of relationship with parents and teachers. How did that help you as you were in school? Did it make you have to work harder, or because of that relationship your parents had? Was he supportive of whatever the teachers were, trying to instill in you, or was it, no different?
Well, he definitely was supportive of whatever the teachers would teach me. But I always said, if you talk about the impact of my mother, that my father will tell you that you can do it. No matter what you tell him you want to do, he say, yes, of course you can. His favorite word to say, of course. But my mother will help you to do it.
Okay.
You hear me? So my father will tell you you can do it. You absolutely can. And my mother is the one who will help you to do it. So in terms of CXCs and so on, my mother is the one who would wake you up in the middle of the night. Amber, you need to study. Remember, you have to get up and do this. Remember this, remember that. If you need to get something printed, if you need to do some research and go somewhere and so on, my mother is that person. She's the one who will help you to do it. Even if she was raised concerns, well, how are you going to do this? Well, how are you going to do that? Which my father doesn't do. He just say, yes, you can do it. Of course you can. My mother is the one that helped you to do it.
So it's that balancing between
Yes.
somebody giving you the words of encouragement, but having the action. Would you say you can't have one without the other? Which one is more important, action or words?
Oh, well, we definitely know the power of both, because we know that our children need to know that they can, that you are confident in them, in their ability. And I must say that I feel like I'm more like my mother in that regard. I tend to be able to see any problems that might arise. I don't want to say that I'm pessimistic. I feel like I'm realistic, and I definitely will be the one to help you to do it. So I think I'm more like my mother like that, but I need to be more like my dad to say, first response is absolutely we can. And then to say, okay, this is how, or let's see how, but they're definitely both needed. And that is why, that's why I always think it's so important for children to have both parents. I mean, I don't even know why that is even a debate. Why do people feel like they could just have a child, purposefully decide that they were going to raise a child on their own? Because nobody encapsulates everything. Nobody has every asset, every feature. You need that mix, that will give the children a good balance.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, in terms of words and action, and you talk a lot about your father and your mother, and I know how much they mean to you and you love them. Growing up in school and outside of your parents, was there any adult that you have influenced you? I mean, you have so many things you are doing in your career. Was there any particular person that helped you along the way, apart from your parents, or any teachers who was impactful in school?
Well, I must go back to the beginning, where it's curious when you look back at life and you see how things tied into who you became. Because when I look back now, I realize that one of the first careers my father had was, and I say my father, but again, my mother was the one at home baking, is that they were bakers. And they were well known for their sweet potato pudding and other things. And at one point we had a pastry shop that we would outfit with all these different pastries. And so my mother was the one at home baking, and my father was the one who would drive around with to distribute. And as a child, I remember going through Sabina Park or the stadium. All I remember is seeing, being real low and looking up at adults, going through the crowd and having my hands in my father's back pocket, going through the crowd selling pudding. And these are the experiences I tell you about. My mother was also a publisher. She worked in a publishing house for most of her life. And I have now gone into publishing. I am now a cake artist and into a baking business with my mom. And, I also, and again, with my father being an artist, I became an art teacher. It's almost like I've become my parents. But yes, other people have influenced me. I don't think I was a good student at school, during high school or even primary school. And it's just because I don't recall it being important to me. I went and I just wanted
Why
to
was
know that I don't know. I just wanted to know that I passed. Okay, I'm good. But I don't remember being one of those students who, from very early, felt a pressure to perform and had this whole goal in mind of I must get this amount, must get. I don't feel like I was competitive that way, and I don't know why. I never became a good student until I went to college. And that was after being married and having 2 kids. Probably because I was paying for it for myself or something. I don't know. But guess what? Throughout primary school, from primary school to high school, I did not do well in math. I hated math. I was bad in math. And my biggest embarrassment and shame was to learn the clock. I just did not know how to read. You're laughing at me now as a math expert, but I'm telling you from my place of trauma as a child, the worst thing my teacher could do was ask me to get up and tell the time. Oh my goodness.
Was the teacher aware of that, or was it just that he was trying to help you?
Of course not, because she's not aware. I'm going to do everything possible to make it seem like I know how to read a clock. It was an embarrassment. And I remember being all the way up to high school, second form, and not knowing how to read a clock. And do you know how I became an expert at reading the clock? Do you know a thing called Swatch watch?
Yes.
What is the unique thing about Swatch watches?
It had is it the analog and the digital together?
No, it had absolutely no numbers. It was an analog watch with no numbers. So you had to estimate the time. And it's so funny. I got one of those as a gift. And that's how I learned to read the clock. And until I got that watch, it was a secret of mine. I don't even think my parents knew I didn't know to tell the time. All the way up to second form. But the thing I wanted to tell you about the teacher that impacted me was at college. My math teacher at college was a person that made me fall in love with math. His name was Mr. Ricketts. I don't remember his first name, but he was a gentle, wonderful, wonderful teacher. He was like a father, and he taught us. I mean, I cannot tell you enough what an incredible teacher he was.
How was it
And
different? How was it different from other maths teachers that you had?
I think that not only was he different because he was gentle, and growing up in primary school, our teachers were not gentle. We get lashes if you can't answer the thing. You get lashes, or if you come up to the test, if you come to the desk with foolishness, your book gets thrown across the room. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't recall having a gentle teacher in primary school apart from a Miss Barton. But Mr. Ricketts was gentle. And not only that, I was now mature. I was a grown woman, married with 2 kids. I was not afraid of a teacher. Right? And so I think that helped. And I was just excited to be in school. First time in my life I'm excited to be in school was when I went to college. And he was such a great teacher that he really motivated me. And I found out that I thoroughly enjoyed math methodology. And I think I enjoyed it because I knew of the difficulty I had to learn. And so math methodology made me see how this is how they could have taught it. This is, and I was an early child specialist. And so I totally enjoyed breaking things down in a way that I think children would get it. And so I enjoyed that. And I ended up leaving college, getting the trophy for math methodology.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important, that you talk about that gentleness that, made a difference for you learning a subject that you had difficulty with. And I mean, how did you use that in your classroom?
Boy, did I? Oh my goodness.
Did you use that experience to think about how you can impact the children in your care as in the classroom?
I guess a student of mine would have to say, but what is true is that I've been lucky because although I was an early childhood teacher, I mainly taught art. So a lot of my experience was in teaching art, which children love. And so I got off easy in the sense that they didn't feel that pressure and everything else they felt in their regular classroom. Art was a relief. And so for me, I think I was lucky in that way. Maybe not even lucky, because maybe if I had to teach a class, I would develop other skills, I'm sure. And I would have to test out that gentleness to see if I really had it. But to be honest, if my children were in here, they would say, no.
So would they say they're getting your dad's training?
I want to say that I have improved, but absolutely. And even I was married for many years, and when I definitely had to let my husband know that when he saw me going over yonder, that place of my father, that he's to stop me, because I realized that I had that from my father. There are a lot of things we retain from our parents, even things we don't like about them.
Yeah.
And that was one of them, I'm sorry to say.
So it's important for those of you who are out there listening. I'm talking to Amba Small, and she's telling us about her life growing up with her dad and her parents and the impact that has had on her. And it's important how parents, we live as our parents live. We do things as our parents do without even knowing it. Now, was there any, I'm going outside of the parents and the school now, did you have like celebrities on your walls and those things that you want to be like, and you have them paste up on your walls? Any influence from society and celebrities?
Craig, I've as a child, a teenager, I've never had a celebrity that I felt like I wanted to be like. I did not have up pictures on my wall of celebrities. We had up pictures that we drew on our walls. But my friends did, And I did have crushes, like I have crush on an artist or something. And of course, there was always Michael Jackson, but nobody that I felt like, oh, I want to be like this, or I never craved that culture or wanting to be like that. I never did.
Okay. So in terms of people in society who have done amazing things, wonderful things,
Oh,
that you probably is a word or a quote from them that has, stuck with you that you try to live out in your life. Can you think of any of those?
oh wow. I'm terrible at remembering things like that. But as you said, if there anybody that impacted life and so on. As a child, my parents, because of how my mother being in publishing, I suppose, and my father is a voracious reader, we always had books upon books in the home. And I always loved to read, all of my siblings do. And I became intrigued by autobiographies. And my parents had bought a whole series of biographies of various people, Black people, because they were Black conscious and wanted us to know of the great things Black people have done. So I spent my time reading stories of Duke Ellington, Mahalia Jackson, Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King, all of these people. That's what I read. Stories about these people, these great men and women that lived, legends. And so those are the people that inspired me. I remember being really impacted by Mahalia Jackson. And I remember her telling a story of how she once walked when she went back to visit. I think it was a school or something. And she walked and the ground was a bit muddy. And then when she looked back, she noticed one of the little girls carefully putting her feet in every footstep that Mahalia Jackson made, and how it really brought home to her how much, she's impacting others, how much she's been watched, and that younger ones coming up will try to be like her. And that impacted me, especially after having a daughter. I had sons. I had son number 1, son number 2, son number 3, and finally had a daughter. And that was when it really hit me that, my goodness, everything I do, she was going to model it. And therefore, what are you doing, Amber? And it made me look into myself and be honest with myself too. Because some of the things I saw her doing that I thought, oh my goodness, where'd she get that from? And like I would say to friends, my goodness, look at this, Kai's doing this. Where'd she get that from?
And
They would say, oh, really, Amber? And I was like, me? Am I like that? No way. And I had to be honest with myself. I mean, yeah, I've never thought of myself as a shallow person or care about things like that.
But it's interesting. You said that until you had your daughter, that you didn't see that way. Is there a danger in society and in people that boys are raised differently from girls, and having that you don't really realize that your boys could still be following your footsteps. I know for my mom, I was always in the kitchen with her, so I love cooking even till today because I followed her cooking and I love cooking. So is there danger of that, and what can we do to stop that?
Absolutely. Here's a mistake I realized I made. My first son was like that. Akil would love to come in the kitchen with me. And most of the time I would say to him, okay, I'll do it. Or, dismiss him from the kitchen. And it's not that I'm consciously thinking like, what you're doing in the kitchen, yeah, boy, pitney or so, which some people do think like that. I wasn't really thinking like that, just being impatient and wanting to do it myself and not realizing that I should teach him. But when you have a daughter, a same gender child, to me, it makes you realize now, oh wait, because I wouldn't run Kai out the kitchen, I would say to her, she wants to be there, she wants to be there. Come, let me show you how to do this. But I did not operate like that with my sons. And I felt like I wasn't partial because I had boys first. So all I knew was boys for
Yeah.
many, many years. So I didn't think I was partial because all I had was boys. So yes, they had to do chores. Yes, they had to do it. But when I had my daughter, I realized that I was partial in certain things. Because there are certain things I would let them do chores, but I've never asked my sons to clean the bathroom, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of young men grow up not doing that kind of thing. Why? You know, and so we know that a lot of the issues that women have with men now, it's women who cause them to have those issues. But yes, they definitely make you see yourself. And I put it to you that a same gender child makes you see yourself even more because it's easier for you to see yourself in them.
So would it, you're saying, and had you had a daughter first, maybe things would have been different for the boys.
Why? I don't know. Because people who have daughters first, what they tend to do is still let the daughter do everything and the boy do a certain kind of thing. I just needed to be more aware.
Yeah. And I guess that is the important thing, is to be aware that it doesn't matter if it's a boy and girl, we can teach them the same values, the same things
Absolutely.
in life. Because I think Akil now is a chef. He loves cooking, but you saw that he was doing that from a young age, wanting to cook, but you didn't give him that chance because you just didn't had the opportunity to deal with that at the time. We're almost coming to the end of this interview with Amba Small, but just want to talk about the generation gap that we have with, especially with technology in the way you talk about reading books a lot and reading a lot. And now with technology taking over, children find a lot of time with technology. How do we influence and still impact children to read as well?
Wow. Okay, so what I've done is I've done what my parents did. I always had a lot of books in my home, and my children are used to seeing books, being around books, and being encouraged to read. And I do notice, I don't know if you have noticed that it's easier to get a girl to read than to get boys to read.
Yeah.
Not sure why, even though my firstborn, Akil, loved to read. And with Daniel, I would be on his case to read, and, really flustered about the fact that he's not being a reader. And I was quite surprised one day to be in his room and to discover under his pillow the book A Long Walk to Freedom, which is the Nelson Mandela story.
Yeah.
He was reading, and quietly so. When, so now to get them to read is something that I found that because I also worked as a digital content coordinator. And so I create content for teaching digitally, right? And so in my research, I did a research about the impact of digital learning and having the material prepared digitally, kind of wanting to back up my whole role and show how important it is for me to be here because we need digital material and it's going to be so impactful, only to find that the studies show that the literal reading of a book had so much more impact than reproducing the material digitally to like a movie or an animation of the story. And it is because with digital work, and it takes away so much of the work that the mind does when you just read a book. And so what we're doing is we're taking away the need for them to create the picture in their minds.
Yes.
We're taking away the need for them to figure out what happened by just presenting to them what happened. We're taking away, even them being able to imagine how things sounded, how it felt, everything. We're presenting everything to them so that all they have to do is watch and absorb what you're showing them, as opposed to their mind ticking about and questioning what is happening, how did that sound, what did it feel like, and come to a lot of those conclusions themselves. And so we know that it is very important the concrete is always important, and that digitally all that they're able to engage in is good, but you can still remain with old school of reading to them, sitting a child in your lap and reading to them, as opposed to them signing off. They're on their tablet, I'm on my phone, he's on his laptop, kind of thing. It has an impact.
Yeah, that's definitely so. You couldn't have said that even any better, because you know, you have read books and then you watch the movie, and it's no way compared to the books, because when you're reading the books, your mind is making your own movie, and then when you watch movies, whatever they tell you, so you don't have any imagination going there. So I always think about reading for purpose rather than reading for pleasure, because when you think about the digital world now, a lot of reading can happen digitally, but it's for a purpose, not to watch something or recreate the story. It's about reading and having that skill of reading and understanding inferences and so forth. Amba, 3 words, if anybody should say anything about you, 3 words to describe you.
Well, creative, compassionate, and hopeful. Don't know if that's a good word, but that's how I feel. Yes.
So creative, compassionate, and hopeful.
Yes.
What are your hopes for the future?
My hope for the future is that our expectations will evolve. And because it evolves, because of whatever we're experiencing, then there's still room for joy and discovery and excitement for living. You know, if we don't evolve, we will remain in doom and gloom and waiting for the world to end. I feel like I need a new beginning. I love new beginnings. I need a refresh. This cannot be it. I feel like it's not it. And that as we evolve, there'll be space for joy and continued faith and discovery and passion and everything else that causes life to continue.
Your friends are looking on you, the children around you are looking on you, your customers are looking at you. What are they seeing? Who are they seeing? What impact do you think you're making on them right now?
You know, I know they're seeing me evolve. They're seeing me become. And one of the things I discovered in life and experience taught me this, I always feel sorry for our firstborn because their existence is so experimental. As new parents, you really don't know. And so one of the things I realized is that in order for my children to become what I want them to become, I have to be that thing. And when I say become, I don't mean specifics like I want them to become a this or that. I mean in terms of their character, who they are. I have to be that for them to see, for them to experience. They don't become what we tell them. They become what we are.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I have to be happy with myself, to be happy with them. That was a mind-blowing discovery for me. And so I realized that I continue to become, and that gives me hope. That's why I'm hopeful. You know?
Yeah. You're well read. You have been around for a while. What quote do you have that kind of keep you going in life, or do you have a saying that you will always use to boost yourself when you are down?
Oh my goodness. Nothing is going to come to mind now, but I am grateful. I am grateful for the spirit of the law. I understand the letter of the law. That's easy to understand. And I feel like Jesus Christ himself came to teach us how to live the spirit of the law. And so don't be bogged down by ticking off boxes and saying, okay, I've done this, I've done that. But actually live your life in such a way that you fulfill the spirit of the law, what was intended, what you were supposed to learn, and how you were supposed to give. I can't give you a quote. I'm very bad at that. But I do live by these principles, and they help to keep me hopeful for the future.
Well, Amba, it was a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I've learned so much about you and life growing up. Somebody out there listening and thinking that they are not able to make an impact on anyone, any child, or to help any child be better, what would you say to them?
I would say you have no idea. It's very hard to have lived and not had an impact. And if you think that your impact has not been good, because we can always evaluate ourselves and be honest with ourselves, then now is the time to change that. Now is the time to change that and decide today that that will change. And the first thing you have to do is to be honest with yourself. I always love being honest with myself. When I'm by myself, nobody can judge me but the Lord. And I just be racha honest. And then I can know what to do from there. So just look in and see what is it you want to change and what impact you want to have, and then act accordingly.
Well said, Amba. I just want to thank you for joining us today and for sharing your experience. And just remember, for you who are listening out there, remember, lives are influenced by your living, by your action, by your words. So keep living and help to change and impact the minds of young ones. Thank you very much, Amba.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Please do like, share, and comment, and let us know what you think about this program.